Do you also find it difficult to build up a meaningful relationship with your grandchildren at a distance? As a long-distance aunt to a 2-year-old in Australia, I wanted to create a solution for the millions of family members who cannot be physically together all the time. This is why I created Peekabond, an app that helps you to connect with young children at a distance. The app works with the following 3 steps. First, we give playful activities suggestions that are based on your child's development stage. These suggestions are science-based and gamified. Secondly, you can create a private family circle. And finally, we'll let you send videos back and forth so you don't have to be live at the same time and save them in one spot for your grandchild to watch. We've got over 120 content suggestions. You can build a love bank for your grandchildren. And if you go to the Cool Grandpa website and look for the affiliate links, sign up for a newsletter with a lot of inspiring content, or you can try the app for free.
Hello and welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is your host Greg Payne coming at you from Studio 12. This podcast is about being the best possible grandpa you can be, focusing on what it is to be a grandpa and how we can all share that experience together for our grandchildren. Hey, welcome into the Cool Grandpa Podcast. I am excited to have you here for our one-on-one conversation this month. I have got some things that I want to just make sure that I'm announcing and that, I'm doing a good job of communicating to you guys what's going on in the Cool Grandpa world. I have been getting back more and more illustrations to look over for my children's book. Now, that children's book, if you don't know, is called My Grandpa's Grandpa. It is a children's book where I'm one of the characters. My grandson Charlie is one of the characters. And then my grandfather, Grandpa Ashby, is one of the characters. So this is going to be a fun book. It's been a great learning experience figuring out how to write a children's book and then the process to go through finding an illustrator, finding a publisher, and now I'm in the building out the marketing plan and getting everything ready for this. So this is exciting stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that you were kept involved and up to date on what's going on. The other thing I want to do too is share with you some cool stuff that I've got. I thought I might start sharing cool books that I'm reading, cool podcasts that I'm listening to, maybe some cool music that I'm hearing. The book that I'm reading right now is called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Now, this book came out a long time ago, and Jack Canfield was one of the people that was interviewed in part of the documentary about 10 years ago called The Secret. In that, he's going through how to create goals, how to visualize those goals, how to build up a more positive mindset. So it's been really interesting so far. Big, thick book, been around for a while, lots of copies sold. So if you haven't read it yet, chances are somebody in your network has read it. And I really recommend that you get the book or download it on Audible and give it a listen. It's got some great information in there, and some of those success principles we may be discussing at a future episode. The other thing I really want to share with you is my friend Steve Owens with the Fascination Street podcast is celebrating his 5th anniversary for his podcast. Now, Steve does a fantastic job of interviewing musicians and actors and directors and basically anybody with a fascinating story. And he is always able to drag out of people really interesting ideas that they have, experiences that they've had, and present those in a way that even the people during the interviews are like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever asked me that question before, or I've never told this story before. So please give him a listen. That's Fascination Street Podcast, and that's with my good buddy Steve Owens. I'm going to make sure to put a link to the cool stuff in the show notes. So if you're out driving around, can't quite remember the book or the podcast, check out this episode and then go to the show notes. The other thing that I want to talk about is just a reminder that I am looking to build out and get engaged in speaking and talking about grandpa stuff. And really what I mean by that is looking to talk about leadership principles from a grandfather perspective, right? So a lot of us grandfathers have had leadership experience, whether it's personally, professionally, or in sports setting. And there's a lot of things that we can share from that perspective, whether it's being a good listener, how to motivate and inspire those people around us. And so I just think that I've got a unique perspective and a unique lens on this leadership topic that I think would be interesting for you and your organization. So if you're looking for a speaker this fall or into next year, please reach out to me. Let me know, and let's have a discussion about what's going on there. So for this conversation, what I wanted to do was talk to you about stopping and smelling the roses. Now, that phrase, stop and smell the roses, has been around for an awful long time. Nobody really knows where that phrase originated from. If you happen to know, please go to the comments and leave a comment about where you think the origin of that phrase comes from. I'd really be interested in that. But I can tell you that golfer Walter Hagen, and Walter Hagen, for those of you that don't know golf, is somebody that's credited for really starting golf as a profession and really being a person that went out and was taking the position of playing golf for money and had started that experience. Now, Walter Hagen was born in 1892 and he passed away in 1969. He is third on the all-time majors list behind Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. So even though he played well over a century ago, he still has a lot of wins to his credit. But he is given credit for saying, hey, you got to stop and smell the roses. You know, for me, what that means is that you've got to relax and take time out to enjoy and appreciate life. And part of that appreciation is to be grateful and to really value where it is that you've come from, right? Or progressed to. One of the things that I like about this phrase of stop and smell the roses versus just taking time to pause and meditate and do some of that is, you know, sometimes I still kick against some of the more, foo-foo, lack of a better phrase, you know, words and ideas. I totally enjoy, yoga, and I totally enjoy doing some meditation. And I'm getting better at that, but there's still that part of me that's, wants to be the 17-year-old that wants to, give myself a wedgie for even thinking about some of this stuff. And that's just the immaturity side of me, right? It's the side where, hey, I'm not quite that grown up yet, but I'm getting there. So for me, what I want to remind all the grandpas out there to do is take a moment, stop and smell the roses. I want you to really take time out to celebrate those wins, especially the ones that nobody knows about. You may have some pains and aches. You may have just some personal challenges in your life that you're really working hard to at least overcome or manage on a day-to-day basis. And there's some things in our lives that, even our spouses, our family and friends, they have no idea what we're doing and what we're facing. And the older we get, I find the more internal we get with not sharing those accomplishments. And I'd like to suggest to you that maybe, stopping and smelling the roses and slowing down and taking a pause and however that is for you. For me, I love having some time in the sauna, especially when I'm by myself. I like sitting next to a river. And for me, stopping and smelling the roses gets to be harder and harder because I feel like I'm wasting time if I'm being too long in sitting on a park bench and just enjoying the surroundings. So I want to acknowledge that it is hard for a lot of us to sit down and not feel like we're wasting time and not feel like we're not accomplishing anything. But it's important that I feel that we do sit down, we do think about where we are, where we've come from, our accomplishments, and then even to being able to celebrate all those large and small victories. And people will talk about celebrating victories like going out and buying a new car, or, if you have a big sales month or something, or going out for a steak dinner or doing something celebratory in that way. But if you're like me, sometimes that gets harder to go out and do those kinds of activities, mainly because we don't give ourselves permission. So find a time, find a place, find an area where you can, stop and smell the roses. Sit down, relax. But then think about what you've done over the past week, past month, past year, and acknowledge the fact that some of these tasks and some of these challenges that you've risen up to meet have been difficult. It isn't something that everybody has done. And it isn't something that was easy. I mean, it may have been a struggle for you and it may have been easy for somebody else, but I'll guarantee you that if tables were turned, you would be patting that person on the back. And so pat yourself on the back for accomplishing something that was difficult for you. And don't worry so much about the comparison. And that becomes a challenge too, right? Because we're always looking over our shoulders. We're always looking around. How's everybody else doing? Oh, it's not a big deal that I got to the gym 5 times this week. Well, yeah, it is, especially if, you've only been getting to the gym maybe twice a week. Getting there 5 times a week, that's an accomplishment. And you ought to take a couple of minutes and pat yourself on the back and think about that. The other part of, stopping and smelling the roses is it gives you a chance to think about what it is that you want for the upcoming week, upcoming month. Most of the time, if you are somebody that sets goals, you set goals, you're moving through the year. Hopefully you're making progress on all those goals, but something's going to come up within the year that's going to jump up and bite you in the butt, and it's going to cause you to readjust. Sometimes making those adjustments on the fly is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So being able to pause, listen to some music, get yourself in a good headspace. There I go again with some of the foo-foo stuff, right? But get yourself in a place where you're feeling good about your accomplishments, feeling good and positive about where you are, and then thinking about some of the new goals, the new accomplishments that you want to make, and being able to start to think about those. Don't worry about writing everything down right at this point. Think about it from a strategic standpoint, if you want to put that kind of a word to it, and think about that desired state that you want. Once you have that, you can always put time aside to sit down, formalize those goals, formalize the steps to reach those goals, and take that kind of action. But right now, when I'm saying stop and smell the roses, celebrate your wins, especially the ones that nobody knows about. Pause and think about what's next. Where do you go from here? How are you going to overcome this big thing that just fell into your lap? For myself, last year, as an example, I started out the year feeling pretty good. And by late spring, I was having trouble walking. I was having trouble, doing a mile on a flat surface. And then the distance seemed to get shorter, shorter, shorter. No matter what I tried, going to the chiropractor, going to the acupuncturist, stretching, making sure I was doing yoga, trying to work out, trying to do these things, the pain in my leg and my back just got worse and worse and worse. And finally I got in and saw the neurologist, and my lower back is a mess. So at the end of last year, I ended up having surgery that was unexpected and have a lot of hope for the future. But that was a big thing that, starting out 2021, I was not counting on whatsoever about having major surgery. And that's just something that came up. So I had to take some time to talk things over with some people, definitely readjust some expectations for what I was doing towards the end of the year, just expectations for how I was able to deal with some of the pain management issues. I ended up buying a new office chair. I was doing everything I could to try to figure out and work through this issue, and then having it really displace some of my goals, or at least slow me down. I had to push things out. So that's just an example. And I know you've got examples in your life, things that come up with your family, things that come up with you, things that come up with your work that are going to, bump you off course a little bit. And so slowing down and smelling the roses is a way that you can recalibrate and then make some decisions in that quiet place, but hopefully in a positive place. Because one of the worst things we can do, I think, is make a very sudden decision out of fear, out of anger, out of a really negative space, because typically that ends up being bad reactions for us, right? Or bad consequences. So do yourself a favor, stop and smell the roses, slow down. You need to be able to celebrate your wins, look at where you are, and then think about where you want to go. If you're not taking a regular break, weekly or monthly, just to get out and go walk around, find a quiet place, whatever that is. And some people, it's gardening and doing yard work. For other people, it might be whitewater rafting, or for other people, it might be parasailing. Whatever that is, it can be an activity. Slowing down and smelling the roses can be an activity. It doesn't have to be sitting on a park bench, although I do enjoy sitting on a park bench these days. Really just taking a moment to kind of be still and ponder things. Hey, I'm not going to keep rambling on. I hope this makes sense to you. I hope you take time to stop and smell the roses and celebrate your wins. And to help us remember to take time to slow down and to, just make sure that we're taking time for the little things. I'm going to play a song called Time for That by Clint Black. I don't own any rights to any of this stuff. So if you like Clint Black or you like country music, this will be a great song for you. If you've never heard this song before, stick around, listen to it. You may enjoy it. But whatever the case is, I hope you remember to check back in with us next week and be sure to stay cool.
Can't hit the snooze, too much to do, no time to lose. Fly out of my bed and into my shoes, hit the door on the move. Cell phone rings, yeah, it never ends. One more thing, if I can work it in. I'm running a rat race race that I can't win. This big old world takes another spin, and I do it all again. I spend all my time making time to work on life's assembly line, trying to find one more minute, squeeze one more thing in it. On track for a heart attack if I don't do some kicking back. Now I think it's high time I make a little more time for that. Got a great big list in front of me, things to do and folks to see. I'm checking them off now, 1, 2, 3. Dot the I's, cross the T's. I just wanna get home to you, get right back to my honeydews. Take a look, enjoy the view, catch a game, take a snooze. Anything I choose, spend all my time making time to work on life's assembly line. Trying to find one more minute, squeeze one more thing in it. On track for a heart attack if I don't do some kicking back. Now I think it's high time I make a little more time for a cane pole, napping by a fishing hole. Slow it all down to a crawl, or a Sunday drive getting lost in my baby's eyes. And I might even try doing nothing at all. I spend all my time making time to work on life's assembly line, trying to find one more minute, squeeze one more thing in it. On track for a heart attack if I don't do some kicking back. Don't you think it's high time we make a little more time for that? Don't you think it's high